great news. And I'm sorry Susan couldn't be here, but it's great to hear what grants are doing. I was pleasantly surprised that they did not report nausea, but did they report any other things like dizziness, disorientation, or other things that either may have been caused by the technology or they just experienced that was not all the way to nausea?
Excellent question. And that, of course, is something we were looking for. And essentially, Jeff, the way that we designed it with the questions we were posing, it was all very open-ended. So in case there was something that somebody experienced that was negative, and we didn't want to miss it, we were putting that out there to them. Nobody had any negative effects at all. And then we're talking, again, close to 40 different individuals with very different types of head injuries, who certainly have had experiences of motion sickness and other types of environments. So to just linger on that for a little bit, Dr. Murray and I were very involved in the design of these two modules, and we looked to the existing research for negative or adverse events in a virtual reality setting in general, and what in particular, where we could find the research was fairly scant, but things that spoke to issues with individuals that did have pre-existing issues like vestibular dysfunction in the context of head injury that seemed to trigger that. And there seemed to be two things that really emerged in the literature as things to be wary of. And one had to do with movement through the virtual environment as a major trigger across studies. And another area that popped up had to do with, it was a little more complicated, but it had to do with like being very involved with complex visual stuff right in front of you. Almost like if you're typing on a virtual keyboard, for example, or having to manipulate a lot of controls in front of you in the virtual environment. That also seemed to be a major trigger. So we made sure that neither of those were factors in these modules we designed. And, you know, it really, I personally was expecting there to be something at least, just given how frequent dizziness, nausea, any kind of thing like that might come up among so many different individuals who've experienced brain injuries of all types. But it really didn't come up, and that was incredibly, that was great news. And again, we need more research to really flesh this out and see what the parameters are around that as we design different modules. But you know, it was surprising to me as well, Jeff, that there were really no negative effects. I will say that there were pieces of, let's say, just critical feedback about, for example, the one thing that came up from, I think, about 2 or 3 individuals was the weight of the goggles itself that kind of detracted a little bit. But, you know, other than that, other than the actual physical device itself, there was no internal adverse effects going on for individuals. But it's a great question.
Thanks, Jeff. I see that Lori has a question. Lori?
Yeah, hi, Max. I'm curious, those who participated, how long after their actual injury was it? I know you said that they were all in rehab.
That's correct. So these individuals, I believe, and we all have the whole methods section written up. These were all individuals who I believe were at least a year post-injury.
Okay.
So, you know, definitely we wanted to be able to control for the variability that might be there as a result of the more acute or post-acute recovery phase of the injury. So we wanted people who were relatively stable with where they were in their course of rehab.
Okay. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Lori.
So I have a question now.
Please, Gary.
And since I'm doing this part, I get to ask. So are you continuing the research with Dr. Murray on using other scenes and things like that? And you know, how can we participate?
Sure. No, those are great questions. So for what
I have a quest.
So currently, right now, Dr. Murray is recovering from a surgery. So she's just, you know, taking some time to heal into the summer. But certainly I appreciate your enthusiasm and a lot of the excitement that this kind of topic has seemed to generate. I know there were a lot of people who were coming up to me after I spoke at the Brain Injury Association of Maryland's great conference a number of weeks back, just with their interest and curiosity about the involvement of the project. So as it is right now, there's nothing that we have waiting in the wings again with Dr. Murray's surgery, and just I've pivoted to some other projects I'm currently working on. But I think the good news is that there is a lot of interest there. I know that the Mind Your Brain Foundation has been talking with various institutions, hospitals, rehab settings, about looking at what the next steps are going to be. So I think there's just the good news is that there's a lot of options out there for the next steps, but nothing concrete just yet. That's a great question, Karen. Yeah, but we'll keep you posted.
So, thank you. And you may not know the answer to this too, but something to think about. Are you imagining that it would be available commercially to people who have, so I know rehab runs out, right? Insurance stops paying for it, and people with traumatic brain injuries can still use these tools. I'm 10 years out. Does it seem, is it something that you are intending on exploring, making it available to anyone?
Yeah, I think certainly that is something that I would hope, is that this these modules actually see the light of day. And again, how that actually works out. I know the Mind Your Brain Foundation is really thinking about what makes sense in light of the next steps and the aspirations for this line of research. However, again, at present, there isn't anything that I know of in a concrete fashion about commercial or sort of nonprofit ways of distributing this. Interestingly, I think I didn't have a chance to get into this too much in the talk for the Brain Injury Association of Maryland, but I think one of the things that's sort of a bigger take-home message from this is that virtual reality, the ability for the general public to afford very high quality virtual reality devices, that's just growing. So the price point for these devices is coming down. More people are going to be able to access it. And not only every year does it come down, but the quality of those devices auditorily and visually just keeps getting more and more enhanced with more and more features. So, and I'll also add, with the couple of individuals who talked about the bulkiness of it, the module itself, each iteration of it becomes lighter and just sort of easier to wear, more comfortable. So I really see over these next few years, that combination of factors making virtual reality more widely accessible to everybody in general, certainly the brain injury community in particular, just in terms of affordability and comfortability of use. And I think that, my sense is the research like this, again, this was the first study to really look at the combination of virtual reality and mindfulness in a traumatic brain injury population. And I think that there are going to be other, and I actually know a number of researchers who are very, very interested, some of whom I've heard are actively moving forward in these different topic areas, looking at different applications for brain injury. I don't know about mindfulness per se, but definitely different environments where essentially and actually, am I able to share my screen? Because I can show some kind of, I don't know if that's something could.
Yeah, I think you can actually.
Okay, great. Because I could just show some slides here. So for example, okay, let me see if I can, there we go. So just in terms of future directions, so like I was kind of saying, there's a doubling the power of information technologies, virtual reality included, every few years, including the price performance, the bandwidth, the capacity. So every year, so that's a factor of 1,000 times in just a decade. So when we think about like
Amazing.
the 2020s, what we're going to see with this, I think it's going to be really widely accessible, and the applications are just going to be really there in ways that we can't think of at present. But I will say, and these are just some graphs here, but just as an example for brain injury, so there's already talk about virtual reality for neuropsych assessments, and any of you out there who've seen neuropsych assessments or have gone through neuropsych assessments, these are things that try to gauge after brain injury, where your strengths and limitations might be. One of the setbacks for this is that something we call ecological validity. That is how well the findings from that paper and pencil or block and manipulation tasks or pegs in a board kind of a task, how well that can generalize to the real world. The beauty of virtual reality is that they can create these virtual environments that can simulate, a grocery store or shopping mall or navigating on a road, taking public transit, things that are really relevant to that individual's life as they're reintegrating into the world. And so the feedback that can be taken from that is going to be much more relevant. And in point of fact, that can also be seamlessly rolled into the rehab portion. So it's not just a matter of a snapshot of an assessment, it actually rolls into how the rehab works. So and this is sort of the last part that I'll leave you with here. So what are the benefits kind of going forward for, say, looking at functionality after brain injury and cognitive function? You have the customizability. It can be very personalized. The safety and efficiency of that, so that someone isn't getting nauseous and dizzy and overwhelmed by being in a very busy environment. They're in the safety of the rehab setting. It's applicable to a huge range of impairments, depending on what sensory modalities are affected, et cetera, has very user-friendly interfaces. You capture a lot of real-world data, and the data can be analyzed in real time, and ideally seamlessly integrated into the intervention as well. It's not just like the separate big assessment and then it's sort of carried out and separately. It could maybe be this ongoing assessment intervention. So that's sort of the bigger dream there, I think, with these technologies.
That's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pleasure.
We really appreciate your time. And
Sure.
If anyone has any other questions for Dr. Schmidheiser, we will post his email in the chat, and you can feel free to email him, and he will get to you as soon as he has an opportunity.
Great.
Thanks again.
Much. Appreciate it. Thanks, Carrie.
So I am, Robin, okay, good. Yep. Thank you. So I am now privileged to introduce our next guest. Caitlin is from the Brain Injury Association of Maryland, which is an organization that is near and dear to my heart and has been a fantastic partner to HobbleJog. Caitlin Exine Starr has earned her bachelor's degree from University of Delaware and her Master of Social Work from Winthrop University in South Carolina. She currently works for the Brain Injury Association of Maryland as the Associate Director, and as Brian would say, she really runs everything, where she assists families, caregivers, individuals, and survivors across the state of Maryland and provides resources to fit their individualized needs. She also is the Transitional Care Case Manager for the Maryland Brain Injury Waiver, where she assists individuals that qualify for waiver services through the pipeline and onto the waiver. Caitlin also oversees the case managers for the brain injury waiver and assists the state of Maryland in finding placement for difficult discharges. She is certified as a certified brain injury specialist and a certified brain injury specialist trainer. Welcome, Caitlin. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Carrie. And again, sorry that Susan is under the weather and not feeling well. And I wish her a speedy recovery. So I am actually sitting in for Brian Pugh, who is my executive director. He is currently also recovering from surgery, and so asked me to kind of pinch hit here. So thank you all so much for having me. Susan did ask us to speak about the Brain Injury Association and just kind of the different unique things across the states, as well as just understanding what it is that we do here within the state of Maryland as well. So the Brain Injury Association of Maryland was actually started in 1983 by family members who were looking for resources that seemingly did not exist. So they actually started the association and then did in fact link up with our national association that actually started up in Massachusetts. Currently, there are about 22 states that are under the Brain Injury Association of America. And there are, I believe, 19 states that are under the United States Brain Injury Alliance, which also does very similar work to what we do under the Brain Injury Association. And as hopefully you all know, March is actually Brain Injury Awareness Month. So they have had some pretty interesting campaigns that have been coming through. And specifically for the Brain Injury Association of America, the campaign that they have been working on is something that's called More Than My Brain Injury campaign. And we, as you all definitely know, we definitely see that there is a lack of awareness as well as a stigma that's tied to brain injury. And many people believe that their injury defines them. And this national campaign really is to remind everybody to focus on the person first and not their injury. Because the person with a brain injury is not a brain injured person. The Brain Injury Association of America also did work alongside the United States Brain Injury Alliance for Brain Injury Awareness Day on Capitol Hill, which in March was on March 6th. And that was where we had meetings with other advocates throughout the nation, and we were able to meet with members of Congress and share stories and advocate for the needs of our community members. Kind of stepping back and taking a look at some unique offerings that we see across the different states. And while we all do fall under our national umbrella, a lot of our states actually are able to run the way that they need to in order to make sure that they are meeting the needs of the states. So for example, the Brain Injury Association of Virginia, one of my neighboring states, is actually hosting their 40th anniversary of Camp Bruce McCoy. And it's a nationally recognized residential summer camp and respite program for adult survivors of brain injury and their family members and caregivers. So while family members and caregivers really do enjoy some much needed time away from their loved ones that they help, campers are able to enjoy more recreational programming that are really customized to fit the needs and interests in the company of their peers and with professionally trained staff and volunteers. Another one that we have neighboring Maryland, fortunately for us, is the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania. They actually have it's called Brain Steps, where it's strategies teaching educator, parents, and students. And this was created as the Return to Learn concussion management team training to school staff to be able to manage student concussions within the initial 4 to 6 weeks post-concussion. Because as we see really across the country, there's a lot of focus on return to play, but not necessarily the return to learn. And so this is where they are trained to be able to monitor the students' academics and physical symptoms while gathering appropriate data to justify the educational decisions and help promote recovery. Now, while this one is not a brain injury association, they are a part of the Brain Injury Alliance, but Colorado has Valor on the Facts, which is an affordable apartment community that is actually targeting individuals facing homelessness because of their brain injury. And so it's actually revitalizing an empty lot with the support services on the first floor, having case management, and people that better understand brain injury, because oftentimes we see that when somebody re-enters the community, a lot of times there may be issues that arise, and instead of redirecting, we see a lot more involvement within the judicial system, as well as potential evictions and things of that nature. So this community would really help promote more independence within the community, as well as providing them with a safe space. And then also the Brain Injury Association of North Carolina, and I see that Kate is here with them. So hello, Kate. But they do have their Thriving Survivor online day program. So those who are attending those will have the opportunity to engage with other individuals who have a brain injury and their highly qualified day program staff, and they participate in games, discussion groups, dance, yoga, bingo, karaoke, and so much more. So fortunately for us, we have a great relationship with Susan and the HobbleJog Foundation, and they have actually provided many opportunities for not only us, but organizations that are within our state as well. So coming back to the Brain Injury Association of Maryland, some things that we have worked with HobbleJog on has been supporting adaptive yoga for brain injury survivors with Tom Longus, who worked with the Love Your Brain program. And they've also sponsored our conference. Carrie and Susan were actually speakers at our conference this year in a session that was so educational and informative for our conference goers, and as well as other panelists to help raise awareness and provide hope for those with brain injuries. Brian, my executive director, does run a podcast to help with providing information and education, and Susan has also been on the podcast, which is called Brain Injury Connector, and shared her story of hope and recovery. Some other things that we have been doing here in Maryland, back in January was Winter Sports Brain Injury Awareness Month. So we made media appearances on WBAL TV, Fox 5 Bethesda, and WMDT in Salisbury. Over the course of Brain Injury Awareness Month, we had brain injury awareness stories with Tom and Mary Longest, who I mentioned for the Love Your Brain yoga on ABC2, and Adrian Walker Pittman for 2 nights on WBAL TV as well. We did host a virtual Brain Injury Awareness Day, as well as participate in the Brain Injury Awareness Day in Capitol Hill. Currently, we do have a Lunch and Learn series where we're offering free brain injury education. And I believe the next one is coming up in May, and I think it is brain injury and substance misuse. Brian has also successfully run Check and Chat, and we are going to be celebrating 3 years for this in May, which was a check-in group that happens every Friday from 12 to 2, where individuals with a brain injury can come and just chat. It's somewhat like a support group, but also different in a variety of ways. And this is just a great opportunity for individuals to kind of help bridge the gap of returning back to social norms and social constructs in a safe and judgment-free environment. We also, like Carrie and has mentioned, we did have our, and Max also mentioned, that we did have our annual conference this past year from March 22nd to 24th, and we were very fortunate to have Max as not only our keynote speaker that opened for us, but he also did provide a 3-hour ethics training as a pre-con. Some upcoming events that we have here is our 40th annual birthday bash, which will be in Centennial Park in Columbia on May 7th from 1 to 4. We have our Scarecrow Classic 5K, which will be happening at Piney Run on October 22nd. And then, as Carrie said, I am actually a certified brain injury specialist trainer. So we do have ongoing open trainings to help provide and help build a better professional workforce that understands brain injuries and can help make better informed decisions within the care of the individuals. And successfully, we have advocated for the expansion of our brain injury waiver program as well. For those of you who are here in Maryland, we do have a Medicaid waiver program that services individuals who would otherwise be institutionalized. So we're looking at individuals who are stuck in hospitals would be living in skilled nursing facilities or have been in the criminal justice system, whether it's due to their brain injury or the effects of their brain injury after the fact as well. And for the longest time, actually, the brain injury waiver program is going to turn 20 on July 1st this year. And for the majority of the existence of this waiver program, you have had to enter in through very specific hospitals. As of October of 2021, our main hospital that we utilize to get people onto this program closed their brain injury unit and said that they were no longer a viable option to help people get onto this program. So for over a year, we helped with our brain injury waiver providers to advocate for the expansion of the program to make sure that we were meeting the needs of the individuals. And the whole point of the program is to help deinstitutionalize folks. So where is that? In skilled nursing facilities. So as of October of 2022, we were able to get an expansion that allowed us, under the public health emergency, to be able to extend our eligibility criteria to help serve those who are in skilled nursing facilities and to get them out onto this specialized waiver program. And right now, this is kind of a pilot program that we have until November to collect data and information, and then we will be advocating for the permanent expansion of that program. So we're having a lot of fun with meeting people where they are at, trying to help deinstitutionalize folks, as well as engaging more within our brain injury community to also potentially bring in new providers to continue to expand services for those in our state as well. And I mean, really, all sorts of activities and programs are limitless as you use your imagination, but they all require funding and support from organizations like the HobbleJog Foundation. So I know that that was a very brief overview of everything, and I know I only hit on a couple of states, but I greatly appreciate everybody's time tonight, and I am happy to answer any additional questions or comments that may come as well.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I think we're going to hold on questions until a little bit later, but if you don't mind hanging on, that would be great.
No, that's fine.
Perfect. I'm going to turn us back over to Lori now.
Thank you, Carrie. Next slide. So it's amazing to hear from Max. It's always so exciting to see how the grant monies are used in the programs that we support. And then certainly, Caitlin, thank you. Brain Injury Association of Maryland is very near and dear to our hearts, and we're hoping as we continue to grow and add more board members and committee members and resources that we're able to, form those partnerships with many of the other brain injury associations around the country, some of which I know are joining us this evening. Now, though, I'm excited and thrilled to be able to introduce you to the program that is the recipient of our first grant for this year, for 2023. And so who will be joining us to talk a little bit about that program is Kate Kirkman, who is the president and CEO of the Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado. And as Kate and I were touching base yesterday, it's very interesting to know that Kate's been with the Alliance for 5 years, and in those 5 years has moved into being the president and CEO. Kate is a social worker by trade, and she brings that focus on integrating mental health and behavioral health services into the brain injury community through a clinical focus. And so now, as the CEO, she oversees the client programs, the professional programs, the clinical services, and then the permanent supportive housing department, which Caitlin mentioned, which was so cool. Kate's leadership has direct impact on BIAC staff and clients, and most notably in the development of the country's first permanent supporting housing complex, specifically designed to assist people experiencing co-occurring homelessness and a brain injury. And who's joining Kate is Zach Hudson, who is the program manager of the Peer Mentorship Program. Hi, Zach. And the Peer Mentorship Program is the program that Kate and Zach proposed to us, and that is the program that the funding is going to directly support. So I would love to hear from both of you and have you share a little bit about the Peer Mentorship Program, how you anticipate the fund supporting you. And then I know Kate certainly, to mention about the housing program as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lori. Thank you everyone for having us. We are really excited and honored to be the recipient of the 2023 HobbleJog Foundation grant. So thank you so much. It's really wonderful for us to be here today. I'm going to talk just a few minutes about the Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado and some of the work we're doing, and then I'm going to let Zach really speak more to the Peer Mentorship Program, because that's what the funding is going towards, and really the most important part of of what we do of supporting the client. So Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado has been around since 1981. We serve the entire state through a number of programs. We've grown really exponentially in the last few years. As we touched on, we do have resource facilitation, skill building programs. We have a mental health department that we started not long ago. We have classes and workshops, including adaptive recreation programs, which Colorado is really well suited for with all of our fantastic outdoor opportunities.
A few more people.
Recently, as we mentioned, we did open what we call Valor on the Facts. It is a permanent supportive housing complex for people experiencing chronic homelessness who also have a brain injury or related disability. Zach and I are both there today. The building's looking great. We have our first 27 units occupied. All of them have been identified. We know who's going to be moving in. It just takes a little time for all the pieces to fall together to actually get them in the door. We have 24/7 staffing of certified brain injury specialists, so that we have folks there that are ready and well informed about how to support these residents and keep them housed. Permanent supportive housing is in fact intended to be permanent, so folks can stay living there for the rest of their lives should they choose to. We also have mental health counseling on site and hoping to expand the peer mentorship program there as well, which again, I will not steal all of Zach's thunder. But it's a really fantastic opportunity. We have seen some incredible stories and some really life-changing efforts in just the last few weeks since it's been opened. This project has been underway for about 5 years. So it's been a long time coming. One of the really fascinating parts about it that I'm really excited about is that because the Brain Injury Alliance was involved in the design of the building from the very beginning, we were able to use not only our knowledge about folks with a brain injury and what will make them most comfortable in their environment, but to also implement trauma-informed design aspects into the actual design structure of the building, all the way down to trauma-informed furniture, which was a new one for me, so that again, we can take folks who have been living, have been unstably housed for years, and put them in an environment where they feel like they can be safe and thrive. So those are sort of some of our big picture efforts going forward. I actually was just able to give a tour to the Assistant Secretary of HUD. They were in Denver for another event and made some time to come and see the building. So that was really exciting, and to hear their questions and attention to the project. So yeah, it's been a big undertaking, but very, very rewarding. So that all being said, that's sort of BIAC in a very quick nutshell. I'll happily answer any questions later, but I do want to give Zach the majority of the time to talk about the peer mentorship program that this grant will be supporting.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you to the HobbleJog Foundation for this opportunity, and to all of you for being here. We're very excited about what this grant is going to be able to help us do. My name is Zach Hudson. I'm the program manager for the Peer Mentorship Program of Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado. A little bit about the program. Peer mentorship occurs when people provide knowledge, experience, emotional, social, or practical help to each other. What sets peer mentorship apart from other forms of support is that the person giving support is similar in fundamental ways to the person receiving support. It's a relationship of equality rather than being hierarchical. A person giving peer mentorship is in a position to do so because of their lived experience. They typically get it, so to speak, and can relate to others in situations similar to theirs. Our peer mentorship program is designed to connect a survivor of a brain injury to a volunteer mentor who is also a survivor. Mentors provide one-to-one support to a peer as someone whose life has also been impacted by brain injury. Mentors support their peers through weekly contacts, and during their time together, mentors will assist the peer in a wide variety of areas, which can include better understanding brain injury, navigating resources and appointments, working on self-advocacy, resiliency, setting goals, and more, all to help their peer move closer to a point that they feel that they are thriving. We have a phenomenal team of volunteer mentors from all walks of life all across Colorado, including rural, frontier, and traditionally underserved communities. We're currently averaging between 40 and 45 mentors active in the program, some of whom have now been in the program since its inception in 2019, and all of whom bring something unique and valuable to the program. Peer mentorship can have many positive outcomes for both peers and mentors, including increased sense of community integration and independence, increased satisfaction with life and self-empowerment, increased self-confidence, increased self-advocacy skills, a decrease in feelings of isolation, and a decrease in substance use as well. For survivors who are peers, peer mentorship can be the type of support they were missing, or in some cases did not even know that they needed. One peer said of the program, quote, "My mentor was a fabulous peer mentor. He was compassionate, consistent, resourced, and always helpful. I learned so much from him about resilience and adaptation to my new normal. He was flexible and available to support me when I needed it. He is kind and listens very well and is a great human being. It got me through some very hard times, and I got to laugh with someone who understood the good times as well. I loved having someone I knew I could talk to every week that would also be a guide on this journey. Thank you for this fabulous gift," end quote. For survivors volunteering as mentors, it can be a chance to, as one mentor put it to me once, give their pain a purpose by giving back to their community while also reflecting on their own recovery and how far they have come. One mentor said of the program that, quote, "Being a mentor has provided me with increased purpose in my life than what was already present. I enjoy being a mentor as it allows an opportunity to share life and brain injury experiences. It brings about positive outcomes to talk with others who have similar experiences to allow them to feel understood and for myself to feel understood. I have learned a lot about myself through this experience. It has been wonderful sharing experiences with others as it allowed myself to learn about how others deal with and solve problems," end quote. So with our goal to continue to lift up those wanting to use their lived experience to help others in mind, the funds awarded from this grant are going to allow us to further invest in our amazing team of volunteer mentors. We have several ideas on how to do this, which could include increasing training and professional development opportunities, facilitating team building days, creating an improved orientation and training curriculum, updating our mentor handbook, and more. So we're very excited and grateful for this opportunity to further empower our current mentors as well as our future mentors. And we're always happy to connect with other organizations interested in starting or expanding upon a peer mentorship program for survivors of brain injury. So please reach out to me if this is something that you're interested in. I'll put my contact information in the chat. And again, just thank you to the HobbleJog Foundation for this opportunity and for all of you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Kate and Zach. What I'd like to do is go ahead and open it up to Q&A. As long as we have Kate and Zach here right highlighted with us, maybe we can start there. So does anyone have any questions for either Kate or Zach? And go ahead and...
Hey, this is Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
Hi, great presentation. Thanks. Zach, just one quick question. So for the mentors, is there any kind of training or mentor model that you use and that they all use a similar approach, or how do you get them prepared?
There is, yes. So each mentor applies to be a mentor in the program. Once the application is complete, each mentor attends a training and orientation. We do have a curriculum designed for this, and the orientation is given by myself. Each mentor also attends an orientation refresher once a year. So each mentor follows the same guidelines and program policies and procedures. And each mentor also has access to our mentor handbook, which gives them guidance on how to handle certain situations and other things that may come up throughout their time in the program.
Again, if there's any questions for Kate and Zach,
I have a question.
go ahead, Carrie.
How long do mentors typically work with their mentees?
Good question. So each mentor works with one peer at a time. The mentorship match goes for up to 1 year or until a point that the peer feels like that they've gotten what they've needed out of the program and are ready to move forward. At this point, peers are welcome and encouraged to become mentors themselves if they feel that they are ready.
Cool. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Kate and Zach? Kate, I know that when you and I were talking yesterday that you had mentioned that there's been other BAAs around the country that are interested in the housing program. And so I don't know, like, what is the best way if we do have someone who is joining us this evening to find out more about that?
Yeah, we've had 2 other brain injury alliances come and tour the building and express their interest in replicating it in their own state, which is really exciting. We are hoping to be a model for others rather than just do it repeatedly ourselves, but you never know. I am happy to put my email in the chat as well. And if someone has questions specifically about it, feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We can also open it up for questions for Caitlin as well. So anything about either the Brain Injury Association of Maryland or things that Caitlin had talked about, or any other questions for Kate and Zach? Or for any of us on the board of HobbleJog? I just wanted to give you a brief piece of information about our process of choosing the BIAC of Colorado. So we usually do a call for proposals, and we leave that open for a period of time. And this time we had 16 different proposals that came in. And then we do look at every single one of them as a board and really looking for what is the potential impact that the grant can have on the organization. You know, what is the scope of how many people might be impacted? And so we had some amazing proposals that were sent, as we typically do. Sometimes it's very difficult to choose. So if any of you are on the call who actually submitted a proposal, you know, we do encourage you to continue to do that. We typically offer 2 different grants per year. And so we will be looking at offering another grant at some point, probably in the fall. Yes, Brian.
Yeah, I just had a question about the housing program and kind of the duration of that housing window for those people and how that works and how you kind of funnel through who gets in and who doesn't.
Yeah, I can talk about what our selection process looked like, and then I'm gonna have you ask the part about duration again, because I don't think I quite caught what you were asking. So we use what are called project-based housing vouchers. Each state, I think, does housing vouchers a little bit differently, and so there were 2 agencies in Colorado. The Colorado Division of Housing, as well as the Denver Housing Authority, they both agreed to provide a specific number of vouchers. And so they really got to dictate a lot of the criteria as far as the picture we were trying to paint is vulnerability, right? And the folks with the highest levels of vulnerability and need would get in first. So I don't know if this is something other states use, but have used this assessment tool called the VI-SPDAT, which is a terrifying acronym, but it really just assesses vulnerability, and our state and City of Denver Housing Authority uses that to rank vulnerability. And so that, along with brain injury or related disability, was the criteria used a lot. And then if we had kind of a tie, it was whoever reached out first to express their interest. There's also like a ton of paperwork required, right? So people they required birth certificates, social security cards, driver's licenses. And I'm sure everyone on this call can appreciate that that is a big ask for somebody that's homeless and also somebody with a brain injury, right? It's very, very challenging for some folks to keep track of those types of documentation. So there's a lot of work on our staff's part to support in getting those documents all put together, then filling out the application, right? It was no small feat. That's just sort of the world of working with government, right? There's just a lot of requirements and documentation and accountability required. And can you ask the part again about duration if I missed it, if I haven't answered that?
Yeah, no, it was really more about like once someone gets into the program, how long are they able to stay in that housing situation?
Forever. So the program model is called permanent supportive housing, and that really implies one permanency. They can literally live there for the rest of their lives, and that there are supports on site. It's also a housing first model, meaning that we don't have requirements for people to be clean and sober prior to entering the facility, which a lot of housing models do require, but we have so much data now that shows us that that's not particularly effective, or not as effective as a housing first model. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
One more question. Is there some sort of transportation that's associated with that or not?
No, not specifically. The location of our building is on Colfax Avenue, which if anyone has been to Denver, is both famous and infamous for a number of reasons, but is also one of the busiest thoroughfares for public transportation, specifically, city buses. So that was taken into consideration when we chose the location, to be able to sort of just link into those existing supports. We have been able to provide things like bus passes and financial support for transportation if needed. And then our staff just work really hard to get clients connected with, do they need, Medicaid transport? Do they need vouchers for Lyft? What exists in the community that we can get you connected with? And that's a lot of what our resource facilitators do. In Colorado, we call them resource navigators. I know it's different in every state. That's so much of what they do on a daily basis anyway, is what exists in the community and how can I get you connected there? So it's really just a lot of those efforts for things like transportation, medical support, all of the above.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for either Kate or Zach or Caitlin? Well, certainly feel free, all three of you, to go ahead and put your emails in the chat so that people have access to them. Thank you again for joining us. And it's very exciting to have all three of you here. And again, we encourage other BIAs and other organizations who provide post-acute care to TBI survivors to be on the outlook for our next call for proposals. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So one of the exciting things that many of you do know is that last year we published a book. And the book is called Trauma to Triumph. It is available on Amazon. And it is a collection of stories of various TBI survivors. And at the end of every single chapter are the post-acute services that that author felt made the most impact on their recovery. And so this book has like 90 plus different post-acute resources that are available. So we encourage you, if you haven't already, to go ahead and to purchase a copy. Again, HobbleJog, our board is all volunteers, and our sole purpose to exist is really to raise funds to then be able to provide these grants. So this was kind of our creative opportunity last year to work with a publisher to pull this book together, and it is amazing. We're very happy and proud of it, and we're glad that it is a resource that's available. Next slide, please. The other thing we just want to remind you of is that we do have opportunities on our website to make additional donations. Again, 100% of our donations go directly to the grants that we then provide organizations like the Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado. And so if you go to our website, there is a new button that says donate. There's other things on our website as well that talk about HobbleJog. And we are in the process of adding and expanding to our board and to our committees. So if our organization is one that intrigues you and that you might be curious about learning more, please go to our website, and you can also connect with me directly. Robin, if you can move to the next slide. And so certainly feel free to connect with me either at my HobbleJog email or phone. I'd be more than happy to talk to anyone who wants to know more about the opportunities to work with us and to support us. And again, we are looking for additional board members and also committee members. And there is also a link in the chat about accessing our book. So I want to, before we leave, and we'll be able to give you back some of your time, is there anything that, Carrie, anything else that you would like to say?
I just want to thank everyone for their participation. I feel like I've learned a ton tonight, and I always love times when I get to learn. So thank you. I love understanding what good works are being done for you know, a population that I am a part of. So as a survivor, I really, really appreciate all the work that's out there.
Thank you, Carrie. And before we end the event this evening, is there anyone else who has joined us this evening that has a question or a comment or anything else that you'd like to say before we close the Zoom?
I just wanted to say thank you one more time to HobbleJog for this opportunity. We're really excited.
Thanks, Kate. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Please be checking to see what we're putting out on social media and what's available to learn more about us on our website. And wherever you are calling in from, enjoy your afternoon or your evening. And I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.